I mean, Broly's success is not undeserved at all. Like, Broly is it is the best made Dragon Ball movie ever, for sure. The accomplishments of the animation is just amazing. And the construction of the storytelling is just superb. And there's just so much to dig into there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much we could talk about with this movie, but, I also don't want to talk about everything because I know that you want to do an at movies about this later at some point, so...
We'll definitely go more into our thoughts on Broly. Have a more in-depth discussion on that at movies episode. Right now, let's just talk about our initial impressions on the film and just, like, what we've got out of it, and like just some stray thoughts about the film, like what we think it did really well, why we think it's really turned a big pullout out at the US box office. Let's just talk about like what we think makes this movie such a successful Dragon Ball film in every regard.
Slight spoiler warning just in case you haven't seen the movie yet, but I mean, like, just in case you don't want to listen because you don't want to be spoiled on anything, but basically, like, if you're going to turn off the episode right now, we're just going to say, go see this movie. If you are interested in this movie at all, and if you are a Dragon Ball fan, even if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, I would say, if you're just a fan of animation and you want to see good animation, you want to see some really well choreographed fights, like, you need to go see this movie. Like, I want that to be the takeaway for anyone who might not want to listen to any stray plot details or anything, but yeah, like this is worth your time. Like, if you don't see this in theaters, like, you're missing out.
Most definitely. Like, if you are a Dragon Ball fan, this is going to be a treat for you. I mean, there are people who have some mixed feelings on the story, but like just in terms of spectacle, just in terms of like how enjoyable the movie is to watch start to finish and just the beauty of the animation, you gotta see this. This is the best Dragon Ball has ever looked.
Oh yeah, and like there are things done in this movie that I don't think have ever been done in the franchise, like, as a whole, which I think I love that I can say that about a Dragon Ball movie. Because one scene I really loved in particular was something that really kind of caught me off guard. Was there's a particular moment where it's I don't know if I'll be able to explain it well enough, but like but basically, as like Goku starts to fight Broly in particular, there's this great shot where like you see Goku blast a Kamehameha like right at the screen. But then it kind of like goes off to the side and you're kind of wondering like, what's going on? Did he like miss? But then like as the scene goes on, you realize you're in Broly's point of view. And it kind of takes you a second to realize it, but when you do, it's like, oh my god, like just there are just certain like things like that this movie does that like I'm kind of surprised the franchise has never done, honestly. Like, to me, it's like such a small thing, but it's like, I don't know. I just thought little touches like that were really cool. Like the fights, I guess overall, like it felt like this weird mix of like, there's a lot going on, and there are times where like it can maybe get a little overwhelming, but at the same time, it's still really enjoyable to watch. Like you can still you still have a firm grasp of like what's going on. You don't ever feel like so lost that it's like unwatchable.
It's so fast, but it's just so captivating. Like, it's just so well storyboarded, so your eye can follow what's going on. But, like, this really captures what, Dragon Ball is trying to convey, that these fights are, like, faster than the eye can follow. Dragon Ball is trying to communicate the idea since, like, the very beginning. This is the first time it's really felt that way. Like, you really can feel like these characters are moving so fast you can barely keep up.
Like, normally within the franchise, you're kind of in the point of view of, like, the characters watching the fights, and, Toriyama's joked about this, like, early on in the story about, like, how, sometimes the fights move so fast that, like, you literally have to have somebody come in and, like, reenact them. Like, I'm thinking of, what was it, the fight between, Jackie Chun and Goku during one of the first tournaments where, like, literally one of them has to like move one move at a time so that the audience can like keep up with what they're doing.
Yeah. That was Jackie cutting Krillin, actually.
Oh yeah, you're right. But no, yeah, it just made me think about that and like how like, you know, like I said, we're always kind of in the point of view of the spectator, but like that's what I really loved about this movie was like it was cool to be in the point of view of the people actually fighting.
Yeah, it was like a Gohan trying to watch Yamcha versus the Cybermen. It reminded me of that, like trying to strain my eye to keep up and just barely, but like just being amazed at the sheer intensity and the sheer speed of everything that's going on. But also just the gorgeous character animation. What I really love about the animation in this movie is like it's not just a bunch of punching and just random movement. It's like the interiority of the characters is so perfectly conveyed. Like there's purposeful movement in this movie, in this animation. Like the way Broly fights differs from the way Vegeta fights and the way Goku fights, and that's just captured so subtly and so perfectly. And I just was amazed by how they could do that. This really feels like, oh, there's a specific way this character fights is being communicated here. Like, this movie was promoted with the tagline, "The story of the science is told through combat." And the fight definitely was telling a story here. We're definitely seeing, like, oh, Vegeta is starting out this fight cocky. He's, like, playing with Broly, but then he starts getting serious the more Broly pushes him. Broly starts out not really knowing how to use his strength, but even though he becomes wilder and wilder, he becomes, like, more, like, focused. He's learning as he fights, and you can see that in how he actually moves and, like, how he starts fighting later on. You can see Goku just being relaxed and, like, taking the fight easy, like, as he's fighting Broly at the beginning, you know, and his, like, so simple, elegant movements as a Super Saiyan God. Like, it's not just the spectacle of what's happening that's impressing me, it's, like, the quality of the character animation in this film is just outstanding. That even in these, like, chaotic fight scenes, like, the animators have retained the interiority, like, the personality of who these characters are and how they move. And it's just outstanding.
I think the moment that really conveys how amazing the character animation is in this movie the most is, even going back as far as, like, the teaser we got for the movie, because they use that footage in this movie of, like, you can see Goku just getting himself psyched up, kind of bouncing around.
Yes.
Getting, like, you know, like, I think that's the first time in this franchise where, like, I feel like I'm in Goku's shoes. Like, I am just as excited to see him fight as he is to fight. And I think that was such a powerful moment for me seeing this movie. Like, I've never felt like that in this franchise at all. Like, it was amazing.
It was, definitely. Like, the way that, man, how they can communicate the weight of every blow, how they can communicate, like, the looseness of the body, like still keep the consistency of the form of the body. It's just, man, this is just top-notch talent at work here. Like, animators at the peak of their game. And they have such creative artistic decisions. Like, the way that transformations are rendered in this movie are, like, some of the most exciting and dramatic they've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
Like, every transformation is given fanfare, and it feels like a spectacle. It feels like an event that's happening. And for so long in Dragon Ball, like, a lot of the transformations have lost their luster. Like, they don't feel special anymore, and this movie made them feel special again. It gave you chills when they do these dramatic turnarounds, and Vegeta is going Super Saiyan and then Super Saiyan God, and of course when Goku is going Super Saiyan Blue is just that's the most spectacular Super Saiyan Blue has ever looked. Ever. Even with, like, it's debatable whether in that sequence that Goku's hair color changes white is an homage to Ultra Instinct or not, but even then, the way they play with color in this movie, the cell transformations, like with Vegeta's hair, like briefly going green as he's going Super Saiyan, and all these other cool artistic tricks are just so impactful, and just, this movie is just full of beautiful color. In addition, just amazing, like, effects work and design work and animation. Like, it is gorgeous to look at.
Even the very little CG that they used throughout this movie looked pretty good as well, even.
Yeah, these look like fighters models and how nice and cel-shaded and true to the like anime aesthetic they were, as opposed to Resurrection F like more, oh, these are video gaming models. These are like PlayStation 2 models. Like these are felt like these integrated with the traditional animation well, and you can tell that there are times where they actually rotoscope traditional animation over like computer generated animation. So that helped even more.
I'm glad you mentioned fighters because like I forget where in the movie, but there was like a particular like there was a point in the movie where like you got to take a better look at some of the 3D models in the movie for at least like a split second, and like that was the first thing that came to mind as well, is like, wow, this almost looks like fighters. Which I think was a good choice. Because I haven't played any of the game myself, but like even I can see that like the models and fighters look amazing. So but no, yeah. I mean we could sit here and talk about the animation like all day, because like holy shit, this is obviously like the best looking Dragon Ball thing ever made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you said, like, I feel like I have, like, very mixed opinions on the story. I feel like, overall, I think it's a good story, but I also feel like there are parts where, like, it feels a little unfocused as to, like, what the movie wants to accomplish. Like, it really seemed like throughout the beginning of the film, basically up until the fighting starts, that the movie wants us to see Broly as our protagonist, which I think is really effective up until then. But it's when the fighting starts that I feel like the focus kind of slowly goes away from Broly back to Goku and Vegeta, which is a weird complaint because it makes sense because, you know, Goku and Vegeta, obviously, they're usually our protagonists, like, especially Goku. So saying that out loud, like, it kind of feels like a weird complaint, but like it kind of feels like as the fighting starts, it feels like we're supposed to see Broly as the antagonist again. I don't know if anyone else saw it that way. That's just kind of how I interpreted the movie. Like it wanted to have Broly as the protagonist, but they didn't want to fully commit to it. Like, because obviously you can't make Goku and Vegeta the bad guys per se, but like, I don't know, it just like if the movie kind of wanted to subvert our expectations as to who we should be rooting for, that'd be one thing, but the way the story was being told and the way the fight was being handled, I found it kind of confusing about like which side the movie wanted us to be on, and I have to be honest, I'm not sure if that was done entirely on purpose. Like, I kind of feel like the movie was a little confused about that. But again, that's just the way I see it. With that being said, I still give this movie a lot of credit in that Broly is a way more sympathetic and likable character than I thought they could ever make him. Like, I honestly had no expectation for Broly going into this movie.
Brolyama is one of the most human and sympathetic characters Toriyama has written in Dragon Ball in a long time.
Yeah.
Like, he is a victim of child abuse by Paragus being very abusive, forcing him to do things he doesn't want to do, and, like, torturing him with his electric shock collar. Basically stunting Broly's, like, mental growth as well, which is why he doesn't have a very robust vocabulary. Like, I love how Toriyama is able to twist this feature of Broly, that he didn't talk much. He was just, like, a big guy with brute strength into like an actual like integral part of his character that is informed by his backstory in a meaningful way, because Broly can't communicate because he hasn't been taught how to communicate other than with his fist, other than like fighting with things. Like that's demonstrated like in his like story about how he befriended that monster on Vampa. He befriended it through fighting. Like, that's how he's learned how to express his emotions, because he's not able to talk with, and he hasn't had anyone to talk to, or anyone to teach him how to communicate how he feels, or, like, express how he feels responsibly. And so, like, Broly is incredibly nuanced and rich character, which stands in sharp contrast to the original Broly, who is evil, who went insane because Goku cried a lot as a kid, and that made him a murderous psychopath. What do you think, V-Lord? How do you feel about Broly's character in the movie?
they made Broly an actually good character.
Yeah, we already said that, but why? Why, Wee Lord?
Because he's not just like... In the original movies, he's just like a completely flat character that's just fueled by rage for Goku crying.
I already said that too.
Well, it's the main point. Broly in the old movies was terrible, and here they actually give him a sympathetic backstory, an actual character growth of sorts, where like you can actually like feel sorry for him, and like you actually are glad that he's like okay in the end.
Would you say that Broly's the protagonist of this film? This film is about his emotional development.
I'd say to an extent, yes.
Would you say that this film is kind of like an origin story for Broly almost? Like, this is like setting the groundwork for Broly's future appearances in this franchise.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's definitely gonna show up again.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Chilai.
I mean, yeah.
Chilai got way popular.
No, yeah. I mean, if that isn't evident by all the fan art of Broly and Chilai floating on my Twitter timeline every day. But yeah, I mean, so I think that Toriyama did an amazing job with Broly, and all the new characters in this movie, like Lemo and Chilai, they're all really warm and endearing, and I want to see more of them. And with the way the movie ends, like, it leaves the door open to see more of them, which makes me really excited.
I cannot believe how much I love the dynamic between the three of them. Like, I don't know how Toriyama did it, but like, you know, we barely spend like as much time with them as I think we could have, but like at the same time, like the time that we do spend with them, I mean, it's just enough to I don't know how he managed these charming characters in like the little time that he had to in this movie, because somehow it worked.
Yeah, I mean, especially since his script was originally like 3 hours long, they really edited this down to like a really, really like still immaculate degree that like still there's so much character expressed here, and you feel like there's a complete arc for these characters. Oh, and also I think that it's really great to see characters like Lemo and Chilai, because like those are characters that I feel really expand the world in an interesting way. For one thing, they kind of give more like insight into what kind of people work for Frieza. Whereas in previous, like, you know, in the series and in previous films, the Resurrection F, you know, it's like, oh, everyone who works for Frieza is just a bad guy. They don't have, like, their own motivations or anything. They're just, like, there to, you know, get punched a lot. And I guess they're evil for evil's sake. But, like, here, like, with Lemo and Chilai, you're saying, oh, these are, like, people who work for Frieza. Like, he doesn't just like find some random people who can't think for themselves. Like, there's all sorts of people who are working for Frieza here. They all have their own motivations that are not like they're evil people necessarily, but like, you know, some people don't have any choice. Some people are like, you know, this is just a job. And I like seeing that kind of expanded and give us a better sense of, okay, there's like more. All these people in this universe, like, there's more to them than just like, oh, this is the one characteristic of their species or their race. This is what I also really liked about all the backstory stuff at the beginning and seeing like more of Planet Vegeta and stuff. Because in previous depictions of Saiyans and Planet Vegeta, like, all the Saiyans have like one personality. They like to fight. But here we see that there's not all Saiyans are like the same person. Like, they have different personalities, they have different interests. Not all of them are actually great fighters. I mean, there are still a warrior race, but it's like, you can understand that, oh, this is a society that functions with different people a part of it doing different jobs. They don't all just fight, which makes it feel like more like a real society. Like, that the Saiyans are more like a real, like, fictional people that have like diverse areas of interest, diverse things going on in their like society, which I really appreciated. I liked seeing characters like Beats, who is like, oh, he's not like a fighter, he's like a ship technician. He has never transformed into a grade 8, you know, he doesn't have any combat experience. But like, you know, he's still a Saiyan. And, you know, there's a lot of other characters like him who are like, they're not fighters, but they're like a part of this warrior culture still, and they still have a place inside of that. And I think it's like more fully fleshed out and more interesting to be characterized in that way. That these are not all the same. The Saiyans are not all the same person. They're not all just one personality. That they're like a race of people defined by a culture of fighting, but it's not like everyone is a fighter.
Yeah, that definitely was really interesting. At the risk of veering too much from the conversation, I'm really curious because, for those who may not know, this movie does incorporate Toriyama's Dragon Ball Minus chapter that was included in the volume release of Jack with the Galactic Patrolman. And from what I've seen, like, a lot of people really dislike that chapter. I personally, I'm kind of like, I don't love it, but I don't really hate it either. But what are your thoughts on that material in particular? I'm actually really curious.
As Mr. Fusion of Dragon Ball The Section puts it best, like, Dragon Ball Minus is not a story. It is a series of plot points that is delivered blandly and without fanfare. But in this movie, in Dragon Ball Super Broly, it is part of a larger story, and it is given so much more characterization, and it is actually told like a story.
Yeah.
For Bardock, like in the Dragon Ball Super Minus chapter, Bardock just figures out that Frieza is going to blow up Planet Vegeta. Whereas here in the movie, you can actually see like the development of his thought process until like him having that position. And not only that, what's really important about how the story is told in the film is that we have actual actors who are like able to infuse a lot of character into the performances. Like Sunny Straight's Bardock does a great job of like selling like a lot of this dialogue and a lot of like what's being discussed from Bardock about like how he feels and like how he's coming to this decision, because you like can definitely get from his performance like, oh, first it's just him musing, musing especially, oh, it's a possibility, you know, if we don't like Frieza, if he doesn't like us, maybe he's gonna kill us. It's like in a humorous way. But then when he hears about like that Frieza has been asking around about the Super Saiyan, you can hear in his voice how it's clicked in his head that, oh my gosh, no, this is actually a serious danger. And you can also understand from like his performance, like the depth of how he feels towards like his wife and his son, and like how he feels about this situation, and how like his line about, you know, I've spent my whole life destroying things, and now I just want to save something, my Kakarot. Like, a film is a combination of various elements that come together to like and sell like character, sell a story. So with Dragon Ball Minus, we only had what Toriyama drew and wrote on the page, but with Minus, we have music, we have voice acting, we have like more expression that's being able to be told through the character animation. And all of that is what really sells this backstory, which in Dragon Ball Minus just was like, it didn't feel like it had any character, any really emotional impact to anything that happened at all, because we didn't know Bardock or Janae. But here, we are given just enough amount of time, and the performances are just so full of life and so clearly informed with an idea in mind of what history these characters have, that we can empathize, sympathize, and feel emotionally invested in them. I've seen this movie twice now, and I both times was getting teary-eyed at the moment where Bardock and Ginny are sending Goku away. I hated the concept of Dragon Ball Minus for a long time because it is like a complete betrayal of what was so great about not only Goku's origin, but the Bardock special and how unique that story was. But I think the execution in Dragon Ball Minus is just excellent and goes a long way into salvaging that story. I still don't think it's like a perfect like sequence of events. I think like if we had more time with Bardock, see more of his development from becoming from like an uncaring, discompassionate fighter to someone who would care about his family, you know, it would be even stronger. But I think there's just enough in this movie to make it impactful and a worthwhile part of this film.
Yeah, like the way I see Minus compared to its execution in Broly is like the Minus manga chapter in particular to me just kind of feels like, oh hey, here's a bunch of things to enter in the Dragon Ball wiki. Like that's what it feels like to me. Like you said, like it doesn't feel like a story. It just feels like plot points to add to the wiki or whatever. Whereas here, like, yeah, like like I said, I felt nothing really reading that original Minus manga chapter, but like here, like you said, I really felt like I actually felt the emotion in Goku departing from his parents. Like, even though I personally prefer the original Bardock special, and in my mind anyway, I consider that more canon. Anyway, I hate throwing that word around, but it's like to me that's a more interesting backstory comparatively. But like the way this was executed in the movie, I didn't mind it, and I feel like I could accept it a little bit more as a part of the lore. It feels a little more digestible.
Definitely. I mean, it's also a valuable part of this bigger narrative. Like, Dragon Ball Minus is there to illustrate the contrast between Goku's backstory and Broly's backstory and their relationship with their parents. Like, the loving relationship that Goku's parents had towards him, and how they sent him off to another world for his own safety, as opposed to Paragus. And as opposed to Broly's origin, where he is sent off to another world to basically die. And Paragus arrives on that world not to rescue Broly, but to train him and use him as a weapon of his revenge. Like, it's an important contrast to illustrate kind of the difference between Goku's upbringing and Broly's upbringing, and how that has led to them becoming so vastly different people, even though at their core, they have a lot in common between them as low-class warriors who had a lot of potential that was not really recognized or appreciated at their birth. But whereas Goku had mentor figures in his life who taught him how to use that power and taught him to grow into, albeit an immature, but still like an emotionally complete adult, Broly is damaged and he has not really been able to grow up into a fully functional person yet. And through the influence of Lemo and Chilai, he's starting to grow and starting to be able to mature now and heal from like his abuse. But like the purpose of Minus and illustrating like the difference, and then like selling like the warmth and kindness that Goku shows towards Broly, and like what he recognizes in him and appreciates about in him, like I think is very important.
God, I love that moment where, like, Goku actually takes a moment in the fight to be like, hey, Broly, you don't have to fight, right?
Yeah, he senses that Broly is not a bad person. He doesn't really want to fight, and, like, he tells him, it's okay. You don't have to listen to what they tell you to do. And it's so nice to see this Goku back, to see Goku, the Goku who is kind and compassionate and cares about the well-being of others, as opposed to like how in Super Goku would make decisions that would be at the cost of others or do something really insensitive. Like, Goku is naive, but he's not like so selfish that he would do something that would hurt the people around him.
And like even like when it came to like, him fighting Frieza, like at the very least he made sure that everybody was evacuated off of the dying planet Namek before he actually, kept fighting Frieza.
Yeah. I really, really was happy with Goku's characterization in this film. This felt true to Goku's character in a way that, the series has not been in a while, I feel. At least in Super.
Yeah.
And, even though I still enjoy Resurrection F, he was definitely out of character in Resurrection F too.
Yeah, they really been focusing on the more, like, selfish aspects of Goku, which they do exist, but, like...
Right, I mean, at the end of the film, he does say, I'd like to fight Broly, still, but, like, that's not his first priority. Like, he comes to deliver them supplies and to check up on their health and well-being. Like, Goku is not just, like, so obsessed with fighting that it puts everything else aside. Like, Goku cares about, the well-being of the people around him first, and then fighting comes as a second priority. Like, he'll not put people in danger just to enjoy a fight.
Which is really interesting considering, like, near the end of the actual Dragon Ball manga, like, I think Bulma gives him shit for not like visiting her for like 5 years, and Goku's just like, oh, like I still visited you or whatever. But yeah, like I enjoyed that about the movie too, where it's like it was just such a breath of fresh air, like you said, compared to Super, where it's like Goku is just this selfish guy all the time, and like is constantly putting other people's lives at risk, but he doesn't really care because he gets the fight or whatever. Like I remember that being a big point of contention when we were talking about Super on the podcast a couple months ago. Just the basic flanderization of all of our beloved characters.
Yeah, basic. But yeah, everyone felt true to character in this film in just a really satisfying way.
I think the only other thing like I really wanted to bring up was because there's a point in the movie where because Paragus is controlling Broly through this shock collar, which is just cruel, and I really felt something for Broly there. But like there is a point where Chi-Lai like steals the remote control. And obviously that's supposed to come in later where Paragus is like, oh no, where's my remote control? I kind of wish there was a moment where like, I mean, maybe it would have been a I don't know, like, I guess it's still in Chi-Lai's character, but I almost wish there could have been a moment where like maybe Paragus was about to whip out the remote like while Broly's fighting Goku, and maybe it would have given a chance for Chi-Lai to kind of like stand up for Broly. I think I just wish maybe there was some kind of like just a moment like that in the movie, but I'm also fine with the way the story turned out still for the most part. That might be just a nitpick on my end.
I was satisfied with like how Paragus was dealt with in this film.
I love how he just kind of dies, and it's just such a nothing death.
Well, see, what I like about it is that he dies in the same manner that he killed Beats. Like, he just coldly killed Beats at the beginning, for his own benefit, preserve food for himself. And then in the climax of the film, Frieza kills Paragus for similarly petty and selfish reasons to turn Broly into a Super Saiyan using his father's death as a motivator. And I think that was a satisfying, comeuppance for the character, for someone who had callously and cruelly treated others for a long time to be killed off in such a cruel and callous way.
See, this is why I need to see the movie again, because I didn't think about it that way, but now that you mention it, I think thematically it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. If I have one, dissatisfaction with Paragus in the film, I mean, I think Paragus as a character is really great, because even though he is just an awful person, he's an abusive father, and is really easy to hate because of how much you sympathize with Broly, you can also understand where he's coming from to us an extent, because, he's dealing with this kid who is way stronger than him, who is probably cost him his fair share of grief in terms of being able to control him, because he's lost, I'm sure, scuffles with Broly is how he lost his eye, and he's also had to live on planet Wampa in these harsh, inhospitable conditions. So you can understand why he has been warped the way he is into being such a kind of a monster. And there's this important line where he says to Chi-Lai, don't pretend you can understand what we've been through, that I think is important to understand Paragus' character. He has been through a lot of shit as well, but he is indisputably the bad guy in the situation, and an abusive parent that Broly needs to escape from. I do think, though, my dissatisfaction is I wish that, obviously Broly reacts with grief at seeing his father's death, and that triggers his transformation into his legendary Super Saiyan form that we all know and love. But I wish that at the end of the film, we had some reflection of Broly on Paragus. Is that because, Broly did clearly love Paragus. He was his father. He told him when Chi-Lai, it's not right for you to talk bad about him. He's my dad. So I wish at the end of the film there was a moment of Broly quietly grieving, and then him being consoled, or Goku dropping off Paragus' body and helping Broly bury him, or even mentioning that if you want you can bring him back with the Dragon Balls in a year or something. Just some closure to that aspect that I don't think Broly really got in regards to his relationship with his father. But at the same time, I'm also happy that Broly is moving on with his new surrogate family, which will be much healthier for his emotional development.
I think that's why I called it a nothing death, because, like, it's just kind of glossed over, and, like you said, Broly doesn't really have a moment to, like, reflect on the death of his father at all.
Mm-hmm. That might be something that was cut out of this theatrical cut of the film, because I definitely suspect that there was more that they made. There were more, even though that they cut down so much from Toriyama's script, there was even more that they have animated that they did not include in this theatrical cut that might be included later in the home video release, much like how Battle of Gods has an extended edition of 20 minutes of more footage.
Oh my god, I would love that so much.
I definitely suspect that to be the case for the beginning and ending sessions of the film in particular, because there are definitely scenes in the Dragon Ball backstory minus portion that seem to be missing. Like, you can see in the scene where Frieza is blowing up Planet Vegeta that when you see Bardock firing his blast, or even when you see Frieza throwing his like energy ball, there are Frieza soldiers standing in front of him that he's firing at. So, and also when you see Bardock firing his blast in retaliation, you see that there are soldiers around him, and he's noticeably battle damaged. Which leads me to believe that there is, like, a scene of Bardock doing what he did in the original Bardock special, like, fighting against Frieza soldiers and challenging Frieza. Or maybe even not just Frieza soldiers, but other Saiyans who don't believe that he's right and thinks he's gone crazy. So, I think that's a scene that is missing from this theatrical cut that might be in the extended edition on home video.
Maybe.
And then scenes towards the end, like I think there's probably more Lemo and Shilai scenes in the climax that build up, like them stealing the Dragon Balls from Kikuno and then making their wish, and then in the resolution maybe more scenes of them acclimating to life on Vampa that are not in this theatrical cut. So those are what I would expect from a potential extended edition.
That was also one of my only like complaints about the movie, was that it felt like the fight ended a little too abruptly, but also at the same time, like, you know, Lemo and Shilai they just wanted to protect their friends, so it's like, you know, what else could they do?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we had to mention Frieza.
Yeah, Frieza is my favorite character in the film, I think, because this is some of his best showings ever, and I think he was amazing in Resurrection F and Super, but Frieza in this film really walks a great line between this scheming puppet master and this just hilarious Joker. Like, he has gone full, he's transformed from the dark side of Dragon Ball to the Lex Luthor, and I really enjoy that a lot.
It's like I've said on the show before, he's basically become the Aku of Dragon Ball. Where it's like, yeah, he still holds a huge threat, and you are, for the most part, you are scared of what he's capable of and what he's scheming, but like, he still has his moments of levity and comedy, especially from from the pettier side of his personality, which is great. Yeah, I really didn't know what kind of role he was gonna have in this movie, but like, I think I'm pretty much 100% satisfied with his stuff in this movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, this movie, I think, has really justified Frieza continuing to have a presence in this story, because it opens up so many more doors for, like, what could be explored in the future. And definitely the movie ends on a note that definitely teased that, you know, he has more machinations in mind. And definitely with the success of this movie, I'm sure they're looking to use as much Frieza as possible, and possibly mine older characters even more. So look forward to Dragon Ball Super Cooler in a couple of years.
They're totally going to do that.
Oh, I fully expect them to make Cooler canon.
And, like, I've been talking about this with my friends and stuff, but, like, really, out of all the movie villains besides Broly, like, Cooler's really the only one that I think is worth actually examining. Like, all the other ones are pretty lame and don't really have much to them other than, hey, we're basically a rehash of what you've seen in the series, and we're here to fight you.
I mean, if they improve those characters on the same way they did Broly, then I would be down for pretty much any one of them returning, but like Cooler, I think, is definitely one of the more popular, and definitely one of the characters that would fit easiest into the lore of the canon. So you could definitely reuse him.
I think he's the one that you could probably get the most out of, because let's be honest, like, I mean, do you want to see a Garlic Jr. movie? Do you want to see a Lord Slug movie? Do you want to see a Turles movie? Oh, how about a Janimba movie?
Well, actually, all those characters, if you improve them like Broly, you could make them good. Like Broly as a character, I would not have been interested in. I had skepticism of them bringing Broly back and making him canon, and now I think Broly is like one of the best new characters to be added into this franchise. Like best new old characters in a weird way, but like he went from a character that had like nothing going for him in terms of character to a lot. So you could probably revitalize a lot of those older characters in interesting ways, and a lot of them have backstories steeped in series lore that you could probably explore in an interesting way too. I mean, Lord Slug is probably the only one it would be hard to do because he's like the evil half of the Grand Elder who is dead now. So I don't know how you do that unless you bring back the Grand Elder, or I don't know.
But can you really do anything with people like Garlic Jr. and Turles though? I mean, Turles is a Saiyan, sure, but
Turles was actually a great villain, honestly. Like the way he was kind of he served as a good contrast to Goku in terms of like, oh, here is this Saiyan who is cold and calculating, but he also has an interesting kind of backstory in which he's a space pirate and he's rescued all these other ne'er-do-wells from across the space to become part of his crew. So I think you could do a lot with Turles, honestly. You just have to like not make the point of him being evil Goku as much, because we already had Goku Black and Super. But you could do stuff with him.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm skeptical of any other movie character besides Cooler, honestly, but I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, the only one that I would, have no optimism for would be BoJack if they tried to do something with him, because there is nothing to BoJack at all.
I have friends who like that movie is like their favorite movie, and even they have admitted to me that you can't do shit with him.
BoJack doesn't appear until 30 minutes into the movie. He does. It's a 50-minute movie, and he doesn't. The main villain doesn't show up until 30 minutes in. In fact, the villains don't show up until halfway into the movie, 25 minutes in.
That's like, pretty. Yeah.
It's controversial, I know, because people do enjoy that movie, but I think that's the worst Dragon Ball movie. I rewatched them all from start to finish. From the first Dragon Ball movie to now Dragon Ball Super Broly, and I can definitely tell you that I think BoJack Unbound is the worst one.
I like parts of that movie. I like the tournament part of that movie. Everything else after that,
the only part of the tournament thing is that I guess Trunks vs. Tenshinhan is decent, but then it pissed me off with like Krillin being so out of character and cowardly. I get the fight with Piccolo. He's fought Piccolo before, Krillin shouldn't be this much of a coward. Like, one of the worst things about those old movies is how much they flanderized Krillin to be so pathetic. It's just really disappointing. That's why Bio Broly is actually, I think, mid-rank, if only because Krillin actually gets to look respectable in that movie.
I mostly like that movie because I like the inclusion of Mr. Satan in 18. That's pretty much what I'm here for.
That's also a huge factor in its favor, for sure.
Okay, but I think overall, any nitpicks or actual criticism we have of this movie aside, again, the very few of them that we have together, like, this is still probably the best Dragon Ball movie ever made.
Yeah, I would say so in terms of, like, the overall quality of it. I don't know if it's my favorite. It's really toying the line with me because, man, it's really up there with Battle of Gods and Pat the Power for me. Like, those are my top three now. So I don't know where it'll overall end up, but the fact that I'm going to go see it a third time in the theaters before it's out of theaters, it's a good, huge point in its favor, I think, that it'll end up being my favorite overall.
Hell, before we recorded today, I was legitimately looking up like showtimes throughout the next week here and trying to plan when I can go see it again. The fact that I want to go see a movie again in theaters really says something about me personally, because I don't usually see movies twice. Like, usually when I see a movie in theaters, like, I enjoy it, and I might think about it, but, I'm like, I'm not made of money. I can't spend $10 every time I want to see a movie. But, like, I need to see this movie again. I need to. I want to. I need more Broly in my life, and that's not something I thought I'd ever say.
Yeah, even if I have to see it alone my next time around, I want to see it again for sure. Like, I need one more time with this film before I have to wait until the home video release in a couple months.
Oh man, I need this movie again.